Thank you all for coming. We are extremely excited to have you here. This day has been in the making for us for months, and there's been a lot of hours put into creating what is hopefully a great experience for you all. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. I want to start with a little story. A few months ago, I took my family down to Gulf Shores, Alabama. It was an extended family trip. We met up with a lot of my wife's brothers and sisters and their families and had a wonderful time. And I've got 4 small kids, as you can see here. And they were really anxious to go play in the waves with their cousins. And it was, the Gulf, and the waves are actually pretty big for the Gulf, so I went out there with them. And on the first day, we just kind of played a game where, we were just trying to stand up in the waves and just try to see if we can, not fall over, kind of like Daniel-san from Karate Kid. But it was fun, but it was exhausting. I mean, the waves just kind of kept beating into us, and eventually we all fell down and swam back to shore, and the waves won. So the next day we were a little bit beat up. We decided to build a sandcastle. And we got some buckets and some shovels, and we really went after it. I mean, we built like Game of Thrones style sandcastle. Curtain walls, towers, moat, the whole 9 yards. And it was pretty cool, but as the tide rose, the waves started coming in, and although it held them off for a little while, eventually the sandcastle went away. And so the third day I threw in the towel and we went to the overpriced sports shack to rent some boards. And by the way, have you guys ever met the sports shack guy and been like, man, why don't I have that job? Like, that guy looks so happy. And then 5 days later, you're like, I'm ready to go home. But anyway, so we rented some boards, and they weren't like full-size surfboards because the waves weren't that big, but they were decent. And we went out and paddled out to shore, and we went after it. And all of a sudden, the game changed because we were no longer just trying to stand up as the waves plowed into us. We were trying to ride the waves as long as we could. And when a big wave started coming at us, we weren't worried that it was going to break up our sandcastle. We got excited because we knew we could ride the big waves even further than the small ones. And we had a blast. And we spent the rest of our week perfecting our new craft. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an awesome time to be alive. If you really think about it, the pace of change that's happening today is faster than any other time in humanity. And technology is undeniably driving these changes. And you all have put yourself right in the middle of it. I mean, our friends and families, they read the tech section of USA Today, but the reporters are writing about you. It's phenomenal. But regardless, there are these waves of change that continue to come in. And they take a lot of different forms. There's waves of new digital channels, giving us new ways to interact with customers and collaborate with colleagues. There's waves of new expectations around the way we design products and the way we design experiences. And there's entirely new business models coming out of a nearly fully connected world that's rich with data, but ripe for automation. These are the waves of digital disruption. And as digital stewards of our respective businesses, we have a decision to make. We can stand at the brake line, like I did with my family on that first day, and we can hope that the legacy of our businesses is strong enough to withstand these waves. We could build something like a sandcastle that may hold off the tide for a little while, all the while knowing that it's really not a permanent solution. Or we can seek surfboards. We can choose to ride the wave. We can use these waves of change as catalysts for our business. We can make the decision to embrace these new channels as a way to differentiate our business from our competitors. We can choose to stop following the trends around experience design and start setting them ourselves. We can choose to explore new ways of doing business by combining the strengths of our prospective organizations and combining them with all these new capabilities. Today, my goal is to teach you all how to surf. And as every good Midwestern, Lake Michigan dwelling surfer knows, there are 4 fundamental rules of surfing, and we're going to go through each one of them. The first one up. First surfer up, closest to the curl, has the right of way. You see, in surfing, the first surfer to ride that wave has the right of way. And in the digital world, we call this a first mover advantage. And I want to tell you a story about a first mover, about one of my favorite Chicago companies. 10 years ago, J.D. Power and Associates launched the Credit Card Satisfaction Survey. It was a new award for them. They looked at all the different touch points and aspects of a customer's journey with their credit card company. And they evaluated all the top players in the field. And unsurprisingly, American Express took home the crown. They were the biggest credit card company, and they had the biggest budgets. And American Express went on to win that award for the next 7 years. But a couple years ago, Discover saw an opening. As more and more people started to move towards the digital channels for self-service, they realized that digital could level the playing field. They started investing in building market-leading digital experiences across the contact center and the web, where customers were, but also into the emerging mobile channel, where they knew they were going. They stopped following, and they stopped leading. And they started launching new innovation after new innovation, being first to market across these existing and emerging mobile channels. They became the first surfer up, closest to the curl. In 2014, they tied American Express for first place of that J.D. Power Award. And in 2015, they won it outright. And this year, they won it again. And in the last 3 years, their stock has outperformed American Express by more than 30%. Discover decided to stop building sandcastles and started seeking surfboards. They knew they could be more nimble than their larger competitor, and they used that nimbleness to their advantage. Today, you're going to hear from first surfers up like Ron Zink from John Deere, Mark Ralph from AWS, Mike Houlihan from Pullstring, and Randy Caviani from BMW. Topics that we're going to cover around IoT and conversational UX offer a first surfer up advantage to the most aggressive and most innovative companies. Rule number 2, when paddling out wide, or paddle out wide to avoid collision. In surfing, the rule is when you're paddling out to catch that wave, you paddle out wide of the other surfers so you're not competing for the same wave. In digital, we call this creating a category. Creating a category involves not only creating a great product, but creating a great company, creating a great experience, and defining a new category at the same time. So we've all been familiar with new categories. In the beverage market, for example, Gatorade created a category of sport drinks. Keurig created a category of K-Cups. And 5 Hour Energy, knowing that there was a demand for energy drinks, but also knowing how most people thought they tasted awful, created a new way for us to consume energy drinks. What these companies realize is that the key to creating a category is questioning the status quo and thinking about how the world works differently. They marketed the problem as well as marketing the solution. They paddled wide of these other surfers to ride their own wave. Salesforce and their famous campaign of no more software is a perfect example of this. Salesforce advertised the problem of installing bloated ERP systems into our data centers. That problem had nothing to do with customer relationship management, but they marketed the problem as well as the solution, software as a service, creating a new category. Right now, digital is bringing us tons of opportunities to create new categories. And the obvious examples of Uber and Airbnb and Amazon are the ones that we always talk about, but you don't have to be a digital startup to create a new category. In 2016, my favorite story is from Bosch. Now, Bosch is the largest producer of aftermarket auto parts in the world. And they have a reputation, just like with their more well-known product lines like appliances and tools, they have a reputation, their auto parts have a reputation for having phenomenal quality and precise engineering. They even have a network of auto mechanic franchises all across the country, all over the world, in fact. But they still realized that there was a problem. And the problem was this. People hate going to the auto mechanic. It's an inconvenient experience that robs you of your mobility, and it lacks transparency. Nobody likes it. So they decided to, oh, and at the same time, by the way, the sale of their products was heavily dependent on mechanics, on what parts they put in the car, not the consumers themselves. So Bosch decided to paddle out wide to avoid a collision. Leveraging the power of today's digitally connected world, they created an entirely new category of on-demand auto repair called SweetWorks. With SweetWorks, you can simply, if you have any sort of car maintenance or repair problem, you can pull up the app, get quoted on the spot, and someone will come and pick up your car for you, take it back to get fixed, and drop it off when it's ready. They'll even bring you a rental car if you need one. They've created a new category on the backs of what they do best, which is selling amazing aftermarket auto parts. They recently launched SweetWorks in California and have been getting phenomenal feedback in advance of their nationwide launch. See, for category creators, disruption is not the goal. Creation is the goal. Category creators paddle out wide to avoid these other surfers. They create a gravitational pull on the market, and they ride their own wave. Today, we're going to hear from category creators like Michael Francisco from Amazon's Alexa. We're going to hear from Eric Lamond from GoGo, Christian Hammond from Narrative Science, and Wanjan Kim from Samsung. The topics today around virtual and mixed reality, artificial intelligence, robotics, these are all new opportunities for new categories to be created across every industry. Number 3, surfing is a team sport. Experienced surfers know this. Never surf alone. And that your responsibility as a surfer is to watch out for other surfers, not just for yourself. And this empowers everyone out there to be more courageous. This rule is about culture. Many large organizations struggle with creating a culture of innovation, creating an environment of entrepreneurs, of risk takers. These are the fundamentals to building a culture of innovation, not just rewarding a success, but rewarding learnings from failure. And a lot of organizations really struggle with it. Conservative cultures like this that are apprehensive towards taking risks leads to a lack of what we call courageous executives. Courageous executives are the ones that are needed to transform an analog organization into a digital one. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to a colleague, and he had a digital product initiative that he was considering taking to his board for funding. And he was nervous. He said, "Jay, I've worked my whole career to get into the position that I'm in, and if this thing goes south, I know the guys that are going to have it out for me. Our organization just doesn't like taking risks. I asked him if he believed in the concept, and he did. I asked him if he agreed with the research that had been done to validate it, and he said he did. And I told him about the bumblebee. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but according to the law of aerodynamics, a bumblebee should not be able to fly. Its wingspan is much too small to support its fat body. Now, thankfully, no one ever told the bumblebee that. But I asked the guy, when you got into this industry, was your goal to be the fat body of the bee or to be the bee's wings? Because I've seen it over and over and over again that it only takes a couple courageous individuals to lift up an entire organization, no matter how big it is. I asked him if he got into the industry to be a victim of disruption or to cause it, to play defense or to play offense. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're in a difficult position. I know it sometimes feels like no one cares, that the chips are stacked against you. But that is no excuse to give up. In the words of one of our greatest presidents, John F. Kennedy, we choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one that we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. Taking risks as leaders relies on knowing that your organization, not only that your organization encourages it, but that your peers have your back. Surfing is a team sport. The courage to ride the wave comes from knowing you're not going it alone. Today, we're going to hear from some of the industry's great disruptors. James McQuivey actually wrote the book on disruption. Melissa Stevens has a storied career of being the bee's wings at some of the largest global organizations, and she's just getting started. And Dennis Hall will talk to us later today about how he's helping transform a 100-plus-year-old iconic institution into a digital leader in their industry. Our last rule: drop off before you get dumped. Surfers know that they need to drop off a wave before it goes all the way into shore so they can paddle back out and catch the next one. You have to be, this is called pivoting. And what I mean by that is you have to be clear about what your business purpose is, but you have to be willing to accept that your products and services will most likely have to change. You've got to always be looking for that next wave. Solstice is not immune to disruption. A little over 7 years ago, we pivoted from building web-based customer experiences into mobile. Mobile represented 5% of our revenue at the time. I remember being in those meetings when we were talking about this, and it was not easy. But we decided to seek surfboards. We wanted to ride the wave and not be a victim of it. And we've helped a lot of different companies over the past years go through that same transformation, and we've been rewarded with some great growth because of it. But the needs of the market have changed. Our vision of the future has broadened, and our strategy and design and engineering capabilities have evolved to follow suit. Our purpose remains the same. We exist to prove what your business is capable of. But in order to do that in today's world, we have to acknowledge that the definition of mobile, the definition of digital, is different. As you walk around the Innovation Hall today, you'll notice that all of the experiences across the kiosks, Messenger, the displays, the HoloLens, IoT, robotics, all of those experiences have been personalized and contextualized to you without you ever having to download an app. We call this the post-mobile era. It doesn't mean that apps are dead, but it means that mobile has moved past the glowing rectangle in our hands and into the world around us. Mobile has moved past handsets and tablets and now is defined by providing meaningful experiences in context of our users' environment. The point is this: the expectations of our users are changing. Your business purpose needs to remain constant, but your products and services will change. We all have to be willing to drop off before you get dumped. It's time to find the next wave. Today is a day where I want you to forget about the stresses of today and look towards the future. At the next break, I want you to come talk to us. I want you to go explore these different experiences that we've created out in the Innovation Hall. I want you to network with the speakers and with one another. If you ask Sienna, she might even have some people that she wants to introduce you to. And when you leave here today, I want you to seek surfboards. I want you to be first to the curl. I want you to be the courageous executive that our businesses need, that our employees want to follow. I want you to be the bee's wings. I want you to think about not just creating product, but creating a category, finding new problems to solve, finding new ways to move our businesses, ourselves, and humanity forward. Thank you.